The bad habit I've struggled with the most isn't procrastination or starting and quitting things or forgetting to drink water. It's maladaptive daydreaming. Like most kids, I had whole fantasy worlds I'd use to escape into when I was bored or whenever I'd want to mentally retreat from whatever was happening. But most often, I would use it to run simulations. Before I had even gotten out of bed, I would have worked through 4 or 5 different ways to go downstairs and say good morning to the unpredictable and dangerous person I lived with. I'd play out a variety of dialogue options and follow each one to their worst possible conclusions until there were hot tears in my eyes and I was calculating what would be faster, yelling for my parents or running out the front door. Then I would use those scenarios to determine the most appeasing interaction, even though they could always find something I'd done wrong regardless. Over time, this coping mechanism became so habitual that it was essentially addictive years and decades after the danger had passed, and it was getting to me in new ways. As I would bike through an intersection, I would picture a car slamming into me, the bumper cleaving my femur in two and sending my bike-entangled body skidding across the pavement. I'd hear the paramedics telling me to stay awake, but they sounded so far away, and then I was seeing my mom weeping over my grave. If I died today, what would I have accomplished in my short life? And by the time I got to my destination, tears were streaming down my face and my hands were shaking. When I started seeing my trauma-specialized therapist 4 years ago, I told her that these daydreams were just me being cautious and keeping myself safe, and telling me to stop felt like telling me to turn off my headlights while driving down a pitch-dark, winding mountain road. She had a different analogy. I was actually driving down a well-lit straightaway, but instead of watching the road ahead of me, I was white-knuckle gripping the steering wheel while screaming at the top of my lungs at a flat screen I had glued to my windshield that exclusively played clips from Final Destination. I needed to stop living in this nightmare in my head and start living in the actual, pretty okay present. So I learned how to notice when I was maladaptive daydreaming, and I practiced throwing away those thoughts. Does that thought start with a what if? Into the garbage. Is that thought about something happening now? Later this week? No? Into the trash bin. I took my therapist at her word, trusted she knew what she was talking about, and started feeling better. And I know there is at least one person out there who needs to know this information and doesn't have a therapist like mine to tell them. Ruminating is not the same as problem solving. Future tripping is not the same as preparation, and maladaptive daydreaming is not only preventing you from being present in your life, it can actively re-traumatize you because your brain doesn't know the difference. So if any of this sounds like you might want to look into an SSRI if you haven't already, and if you're feeling hopeless, you should know that I used to do this basically 24 hours a day, and now I hardly do it at all. So whatever it is you're working on, please have hope and keep moving toward health. I promise it's worth it.